It's Ash from SuperVideos back for another video for Fear the Walking Dead. In this video, we're going to be talking about the timeline mistake that the Fear the Walking Dead writers made as far as the story with the Sanctuary is concerned. Season 8, Episode 9, which was called Sanctuary. So stay tuned. We'll be right back to break this down. Alright, as always, before we dive into it, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. With that said, let's dive right into it. So of course, Dwight and Sherry went back to the Sanctuary in this episode, and when they got there, they saw a lot of stuff that didn't really make sense in the timeline. So obviously, we did see Sanctuary falling apart, which makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense that it was falling apart to that extent that we saw. What is a problem is the fact that we saw the walkers with the metal on their head, the same ones that Eugene helped actually craft for Negan during the Saviors era, during All Out War. And that doesn't really make sense. The reason why is we actually saw Sanctuary after the war. Right before things really went bad, we did see all the communities chipping in, helping out, helping the Sanctuary get back on its feet. We saw Rick, Daryl, Carol, and the others there. And it was definitely still in pretty good shape, but it was pretty early on after the war, and it wasn't abandoned. We also know that there was no walkers anymore in front of the factory or the Sanctuary. There were crops that the survivors were helping plant, which were obviously dying because it was a factory, which led to the survivors from other communities chipping in, giving supplies to Sanctuary. But we saw no sign of any walkers with the metal heads. So that is already something that doesn't make sense. I mean, we did see Saviors at that time trying to put up a walker as a form of distraction, like a scarecrow type of thing, so that the crops are not attacked by the crow, and maybe that would help the crops survive and be healthy. So we saw that, but that was it. We didn't see any type of walker with the metal on their head that we saw during the Saviors era in front of the Sanctuary. Even later on, like a few years after, when Negan went back to the Sanctuary, we still didn't see any walkers in front of the Sanctuary. None whatsoever. At least not any walkers with metal on their head. We did see one walker, which was an ex-Savior, trapped inside, but that was it. But even the Sanctuary wasn't as run down and as crushed as we saw it in Fear the Walking Dead. So that's also something that doesn't really make sense. I mean, what really happened, whatever happened, must have been after Negan went there, because this is the last time we saw the Sanctuary before in Fear the Walking Dead. So it just doesn't make sense that there's this much of a destruction at Sanctuary. And also doesn't make sense that there are any walkers with the metal heads. Now, there's a lot of people saying that these walkers with metal on their heads are actually new walkers, and these new walkers are actually created by these people that we saw living at the Sanctuary. And people are saying that one of these people is actually an ex-Savior who knew about how the Saviors operate and knows about the trick that Eugene used with the metal on the head of the walkers and all of that. And to that I say it's a possibility, but two problems. One, it doesn't make sense that Dwight wouldn't know this person, or this person wouldn't know Dwight, because Dwight was one of the top lieutenants for Negan at one point. So the fact that this person doesn't know Dwight makes no sense. So that's one problem. The other problem is that it's repetitive. We already saw an ex-Savior in Dead City. I'm talking about the Croat. So we already saw that. So it's repetitive for them to do it again. I mean, if they didn't do it in Dead City, this would have been the perfect time to do it in Fear the Walking Dead. And the flashback that we saw with Simon and Negan could have fit extremely well here. Imagine if they cut the Croat story down into maybe 1 or 2 episodes, and that was in Fear. That would have been a lot better than what they did in Fear. I'm not going to get into the conversation of whether the Croat story in Dead City made sense. That's beside the point. That's not part of this video. But when it comes to would it have worked better and fit better on Fear at this point, I think it would have. Now, I said all of that to say that the writers on Fear are extremely lazy. And the mistakes that they made, particularly in this episode, has made me wonder whether they're even watching any Walking Dead outside Fear. Are they just using the stuff from season 7 of The Walking Dead as reference point or not? Because they might as well be using that, because then at that point, yes, the metal head unwalkers make sense. Sanctuary being like that kind of makes sense, and all of that. So that's probably what's happening. They're not watching anything in The Walking Dead themselves. They're just using season 7 as reference. And it's even lazier that they're straight up copying and pasting a particular scene for Fear the Walking Dead. We saw the statue that's very familiar to us in front of Sanctuary, like here on Fear, but it wasn't a newly shot scene. This is from season 7, I think, of The Walking Dead, and this is the scene from Fear. It's like they just zoomed in a little bit, added some vines to the buildings in the background, and called it a day. I mean, it's entirely the same, like no difference. So that just shows how lazy the writers really are. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to go through in this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to join our community, and press the bell to be notified when I upload on the channel. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.